Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending our live demonstration of OSIsoft's Pi system. My name is Tom Terpel, and our expert this morning is Dan McGovern, Systems Engineer at OSIsoft. Today's demonstration will take roughly 30 minutes, followed by 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. I want to encourage everyone to submit any questions you may have via the Q&A option on the WebEx digital event platform. If we're not able to get to everyone's question today, we will certainly follow up with a response after the demonstration. And with that, I will now hand it off to Dan McGovern to get started with today's demonstration. Dan, thanks again for joining us.
Hey, excuse me. Good morning, Tom. Hey, thank you. Morning. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone on the East Coast, along with me out here. I am Dan McGovern. Like Tom said, I am a system engineer out of the Philadelphia office. Just tell you a little bit about myself before we get into the whole thing. I am from Philadelphia. I started off in tech support 5 or 6 years ago. Started off at OSIsoft as tech support 5 or 6 years ago. Came up through field service, and now I'm what we call a systems engineer. I basically just help people the Pi system get the most out of it, get a handle on their data, and kind of understand how to use the Pi system to really make those critical business decisions. So our company was founded in 1980. The CEO, and founder Pat Kennedy was kind of just driving around in California, looking at all the smokestacks in the industry and thinking about the people that were running around with pencils and notepads, writing down data and kind of chasing each other down with radios and talking over things in break rooms and kind of the inefficiencies and the trouble with really using data to make business decisions. So fast forward to a few decades, we're still a privately held company, but now we have over 15,000 installations across the world with 27 offices. We have tech support, guaranteed 24 hours a day. You're going to get somebody to help you out, and we're just kind of those pathfinders. We're the leaders in data historization, analysis, and visualization, the manufacturers of the Pi system. So you guys know OSIsoft as the kind of the go-to data historian, right? So we're in over 1,000 of the world's leading power utilities, 95% of the Fortune top 40 oil and gas companies. Every single metals and mining company can be using Pi in some capacity. So really, it's really the trusted name in using your data and kind of getting that information to help you drive success and make business decisions. So what is the Pi system? So you'll hear us use the word infrastructure a lot whenever we talk about the Pi system. So the Pi system is really anything where your data starts, wherever it needs to go, and it really takes all that information from all of your equipment, whatever you have. There's always going to be 1,000 different things going on. We have sensors everywhere. Data is everywhere in our world, and we're gonna want to find out what's going on with these assets, what's going on with our equipment, get that real-time situational awareness to help drive efficiency, to help drive health, to help ensure quality. Here are 6 kind of core business impacts that the Pi system seeks to support and enable. So the kind of the elevator speech is the goal of the Pi system is getting actionable information into the hands of intelligent people to make informed decisions. And you can see with that sort of the power of the Pi system, there have been companies that have reduced unplanned shutdowns. We've saved millions of dollars in just in having that readiness and having that kind of understanding of what's going on. We've prevented failures. We've recovered what would potentially be leakages or lost product. We've been able to avoid several I don't want to say catastrophes, but difficult business kind of have been able to be avoided or solved through the use of the Pi system. Year after year, customers are always very happy with getting that information. So here's just some of the the systems, the equipment, the sensors that we're going to be talking to. The most popular ones pretty much highlighted in bold there. And we know that we have different users, different business reasons for talking to these pieces of equipment, for finding out what's going on. Maybe we have engineers that need to know what's the problem with with turbine number 7. We have a plant manager that needs to write a report to hand out to upper management that has to get data from everywhere. It has to know what's going on all over the site, all over the world. We have technicians that need to be notified the moment something goes out of tune, gets out of spec, and we have operators that want to forecast productivity and find out what's coming up on the road ahead. How can I plan for what's going to be happening next? So the PI system infrastructure, like I said, is pretty much everything in between your sensors, your assets, your critical, and your users. So we use what are called interfaces and connectors that are going to speak the same language. There's OPC, RDBMS, SQL, Modbus connections, HTML, whatever it is. However your data is, we don't really care. We don't care where it comes from. I mean, we care, but we're going to go in there and we're going to find a way to talk to it, right? And we're going to take that data and store it safely in one place called the PI Data Archive. PI Data Archive is kind of the core of the modern PI server. If you bought a server in the 1980s, you would basically just get that, that PI Data Archive, real-time data streaming, capturing, historizing, visualizing. But since then, we've built out into the asset framework along with analytics, event frame tracking, and notifications. So the visualization tools that you may or may not know about are PI Vision, the latest and greatest dashboarding, trend kind of event visualization tool. It's HTML based, and it's what we're going to be talking about today. It's kind of that that simple one-stop shop, that main point of contact, just to get in and easily collaborate and visualize with PI data. Data link for reporting, and then there's manual logger, process book, other tools for different kind of ways of shaping up that data into reports. If we ever need to build a custom application or other business systems, we can always get our data however we need to with custom coding, custom built tools. We can integrate with systems like geospatial reasoning, Esri ArcGIS systems, business analytics, big data processing, SAP HANA type. We can connect our data with maybe business intelligence and business excellence advisors. So however we want to be operating with our data, however we want to be using it, most of the time we're talking about just kind of in-house operators, users kind of visualizing that data, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. But however we want to use that data, we're going to be able to get that data in and get that data out in the most useful way possible, so that we can really unlock the power of that data. So in the old days, kind of, we like I said, we kind of just got our data, wrote it down, got into the PI Data Archive, but it kind of stayed there. There wasn't really, it was still kind of locked into that. The actionable information wasn't really getting into the hands of intelligent people, especially when we had to deal with all the different locations. Maybe we had SCADA systems writing to some sort of historian over here. Maybe there's Excel sheets for asset reliability tracking, installation, equipment installation, readiness, equipment, maintenance. Might have been kept in some sort of access database over here. There's Excel sheets for this and for that. We've got a LIMS system kind of hanging off to the side, and you had to know who to talk to, where to go. We had these what we called islands of information, or silos of data, where they're kind of all separated and fragmented, and it was always a chore, right, to track that stuff down. So the PI system seeks to do, right, is kind of standardize and simplify that data collection and that data retrieval. So we know that we can go in, get the data, kind of store it. And now with the use of the asset framework, we can enhance it, contextualize it, analyze it, and then deliver it to our users in a reliable, fashion. And we can also integrate that with those systems that need to kind of get outputs from the PI Data Archive as well, from the PI system as well. So again, our Pi servers over here. And these days, so historically, we had the Pi interfaces that could just write streams of data, just timestamps and values for whatever is going on. Any sensor that's collecting data is going to constitute what we call a Pi tag or a Pi point in the data archive, which is just all the measurements that we've ever seen on that sensor in the field. We are developing new systems of measurement, new methods of measuring kind of from those sensors with event frames and assets in mind, assets being the actual virtualizations of those pieces of equipment that the sensors are attached to. So we have a more contextual basis for where that data is coming from, what it's related to. So we're getting smarter with our data collection. And we are moving also towards kind of a more agnostic approach of writing OMF apps. The OSI message format is a standardized language that uses REST-based, key value pairs of timestamps and values, and it's a simple way of if there's ever a need to write a custom bit of data collection methodology, it can run anywhere, it can do whatever. So it's basically a custom connector. So so there's already over 450 standard interfaces. We've got we're the system we are because we can talk to pretty much everything, but we're also preparing for, planning for the future of, wherever it is come from, wherever it needs to come from, we're kind of unleashing that power as well. So in terms of delivering Pi data, so today we're going to be talking about the visualization tool that, like I said, the latest and greatest Pi Vision, formerly known as Pi Coresight. It is the HTML5 based platform agnostic. You can run it on your tablet. You can have it open on a tab in your on your desktop. It's always going to let you get in there, easily display to really go in and compare what's going on from one piece of equipment to another to see what's going on right now, last 8 hours or yesterday. So you can see we got some dashboard going on there. So we're going to walk through that today. But also, keep in mind there's other main out-of-the-box tools, Pi Data Link to pull in calculation results, raw archive values, kind of getting that tabular format to provide reporting for maybe like last month, year over year type things. You can see we can kind of colorize it, codify it. So to track our events, to rich Excel functionalities, and kind of build out a tabular report like that. Like I mentioned, we always have the option for kind of planning for the future to prepare this data and deliver it to external systems that may need to, that may develop kind of more, big picture ideas of our big data analysis with machine learning or like I said, geospatial awareness, business intelligence tools. So you can see here some of the things that we can integrate with Power BI, Tableau, TIBCO, Spotfire, Microsoft Azure. So these are where our Pi business integrators are going to come in and let us kind of get that data out into those sorts of systems. So the asset framework is pretty straightforward in terms of the actual kind of concepts behind it. So like I said, it's kind of that layer that sits on top of the Pi data archive that helps us take our streams of data that individually are still, like I said, kind of locked away in terms of value. We're not really getting the information into, we're not really getting the information out of just observing one sensor, one tag, one value. But what we want to do is kind of contextualize those, shape them up into the assets and the elements that represent the equipment that we deal with day to day. So how do we kind of deploy these sites? How do we build out the places, the things that we work with? How do we get consistent analytics to tell us the key performance indicators and the calculated results that we care about? And how do we kind of perform, get that process knowledge for the people that need to use it? So what we're evolving out of is a close-up observational. Here's what's going on with this sensor. Here's the limits on this sensor, and we're starting to say, let's talk more about assets. Let's compare this piece of equipment to another. So what we can do is we can collect that and then shape it into elements or assets in the asset framework, and kind of provide it in format that uses common and a hierarchical relationship model that shows us, either geographically where things are, relationship wise, process, here's the equipment available, it's pertinent to this piece of to this area, to this workflow, to this sort of production line kind of a thing. So the asset framework really takes our data from all these different systems, brings it in, and tells us more about, say we're looking at a pump and we want to know, we have obviously our time series data, pressure, vibrations, flow. Maybe we want to know things like who is the manufacturer, what's the model number for this piece of equipment, what's the name that we would commonly refer to it as. So all these things we would never put in tags that really serve to support our analysis and our comparisons of these pieces of equipment and our analysis of this business data. So we can track events, we can have notifications if there's ever failures. So all of these things that at a higher level are going to really help us run efficiently and in a cost-effective manner to save us money, save us time in tracking down this data, to make our lives easier. So in terms of actually writing analyses, this is one example. So we can use whatever logic we want. There's a nice little UI. This is what it looks like. It has sort of IntelliSense, autocomplete sort of thing. So as you're typing in, it'll help you autocomplete the names of data points, the names of functions that we're going to be using. And you can see here, so we can maybe do asset scoring where we're checking quality and performance and really getting an output of the synthesized data that we're going to be using to make decisions, as opposed to just the raw data that's coming in from our sensors. We're maybe combining things like flow rates, limits, to get things like efficiencies, and then we can use another analysis to track, where are my efficiencies low, where are my efficiencies high. We can correlate those times with which pieces of equipment are running at low efficiency, when are they running poorly, why are they running poorly, is it correlated with temperature, correlated with the viscosity of the product coming through. So we can really sort of track those things and get a much clearer picture as we step back and contextualize our data with actual real world expertise and information. So events can come. So events are just another form of kind of analytics. So we have just as opposed to just writing calculation results and generating analysis information, we can also use our analyses to just track. We can say, hey, here are the, I consider an event to be when this happens, and you stop the event when this happens. So we can create our events with custom logic. We can trigger them from external systems. You can see here, we can say when the temperature goes above 180, let me know when there's high temperature events. So again, there's a few different ways to just go ahead and trigger those. But let's go ahead and take a look through some of the displays that we might be working on just in life. So my first example here is the actual building out in San Leandro. That's the headquarters for OSIsoft. So we have this kind of high-tech campus out in California that has special glass, and it's monitoring pretty much everything that's going on in terms of the heating and cooling and the sort of the mechanics of the building. So you can see here have this variable air handler volume control sort of feedback system alarms here. So if I go over to floor 2, I can double click in and say, hey, I see I have an alarm here, and it'll navigate me to a display that's built out to show me what's going on with my floor. So I can instantly kind of glean on just what's going on the floor here. I can see the little T icons here represent all of my thermostats. The blue areas are cooling. If there were any red areas, it'd be heating. I guess it's warm out there right now in California, so I don't think anybody's heating up any rooms. But I can see that I have some alarms over here for maybe what these represent is the temperature differential is too high, that the set point for the room is unachievable with the where it's been trying to reach a certain set point and it hasn't been able to for some time. So I know that an area 2-04 over here, maybe it's trying to cool it down to a level that's unrealistic. It's it's set too high. It's just constantly blowing too much. So if I wanted to go and kind of track that down, I could see I could go in and I could check on, this kind of air handler, and I could go in here and I could see that right now, maybe something is jammed in the piece of equipment. It's not actually cooling. I can see what the set point is in this area. Check out the humidity and the airflow. I can go in and see this piece of equipment by itself and see kind of everything that's going on in a diagnostic for this air handler. That being said, I know that this is a piece of equipment that I have several iterations of. It's a ubiquitous type piece of equipment in my system. So I have actually what's called a template in the asset framework that represents sort of the class of equipment that I can that's all going to be shaped similarly. So if I want to change it and say, hey, maybe I'll look at a different part of this floor and the 203 section, the 202 section, I can change to any piece of equipment that's built from the same template. So if I have multiple pumps, if I have multiple air handlers like this, if I have multiple trucks, if I have multiple pill presses, encapsulating pieces of whatever it is, we'll always be able to go in and kind of inform the asset framework of equipment that we deal with and build them out into a structure that it can use to inform these displays and contextually shift and compare however we want to. So so I can go in and I know that I have a building-wide KPI dashboard that maybe rolls up using our hierarchy, says, hey, tell me the complete usage of electricity in this area. Tell me the kilowatt hours over the last day, over the last 2 days. And I can compare my building load. So how much energy am I using today compared to the same day last year? And I can see actually we're doing pretty well. So if I was going to compare maybe the temperature today and the temperature last year, and I could kind of scale things appropriately and kind of find similar days, similar pieces, similar data sets, and say, why are things taking so much longer today to cool? Why is why are we running so much with such higher kind of or lower efficiency today? So I can see here I have kind of all my outputs for the the local climate, the weather, the power factor, the demand on the system. I can get kind of a report on everything that's going on within the building. I can look floor by floor, and I can see kind of over the last few months a graph of temperature versus megawatt usage of actual electricity consumption, right? So I can kind of track my efficiency and find out what's going on month over month and check my intensities. So this is just an example. Obviously, we'll have different equipment, but ultimately the Pi system is not really going to it's not really going to be locked into any one industry or any one piece of equipment. What we do for a building, we can do for any sort of site. Like I said, in that original slide, we were working with all these different industries across all these different customers, right? We're always going to help get that situational awareness, get that contextualized information that's going to help us make those business decisions for whatever we're doing. So here's an example where we have like a refining company that we built out. So sort of just again for demonstrations, you can see here we have multiple sites. The sites are colored by their overall efficiency for utilization and conversion of oil. If I go in here and navigate down into one of my sites, I can kind of get an overview. Some people like to do kind of a rushing nesting dial type thing where we have kind of like a bird's eye view and we kind of drill down further and further from from a high up display that just tells me, hey, here's a series of just large number of site-wide numbers, site-wide aggregate kind of efficiencies and information and kind of sensors to tell me how good things are going. So I can just tell at site if it's green, it's good. If it's bad, if it's red, it's bad. see what's going on. I can drill further down into kind of a local dashboard to see the process that are being monitored, the quality of my piece of equipment, the equipment statuses. If I have any that are in alarm, I could go in, maybe navigate down to this individual pump that is currently undergoing an excursion or a down or an outage. I can have here a troubleshooting checklist that might take me to a PDF hosted on like SharePoint site or something like that. I can look at my performance curve that's comparing the the PSI versus gallons per minute. Here's my expected pumping rate given the the current utilization. I can look at events that, again, just like before, we had some events for tracking temperature differentials. Now we have bearing temperature cavitations. I can see here that maybe I have some high vibrations. If I was an operator and I was going to go and check on these in real time, I know these will be filling in real time. I could go in and we can find out when things happen. I could go and I could mark them and say, hey, here's the reason code for the upset yesterday at 3 in the afternoon. I could mark it as operational. Somebody just forgot to turn it off, or forgot to set the correctly, or maybe it was we checked the we test and check the lubrication, and we know that was the issue here. So our event frames can be colored with severities here. You can see that the blue might be low severity, red would be high severity. There's a few in between. We can have reason codes that color them later for reporting. We can say, hey, which piece of equipment had had vibrational events, which piece of equipment were shut down, what were the and again, those event frames capture variables at those times. So what was the what was the temperature at the beginning, what was the pressure leading up to it, what was the what was the bearing temperature at that time. So we can really go through and easily kind of track down all of our information and kind of contextualize it by everything that would describe what the equipment that it's coming from, the world that data lives in. And in this way, we can really unlock the power of that data and easily visualize into it and really kind of extract that information, where we're really converting our data into information for our users. And sort of my last sort of example here would be, we have a wind turbine sort of generation wind farm. So we have 3 big sites, three sites, Big Buffalo, Black Mesa, and Black Wolf Wind Farm. Here again, we have kind of a overview total aggregate of our revenue and our power generation. So it's it's scaled, I guess, by demand, by pricing. We can see here day over day, yesterday and today's revenue, what we're forecasting in terms of the weather for tomorrow, the demand for tomorrow, and are there any turbines that are currently not in production. So maybe this is something we could just pull up every once in a while if we're head engineers and we want to just kind of get a glimpse of what's going on enterprise wide. If we want to drill into any one of these sites, we could go in. We have navigational links contextually built out for the data that's being displayed by that part of the display to navigate us to. I clicked on Black Mesa, it takes us to Black Mesa, and it tells me, hey, here's the active power, here's my expected power, here's the current wind speed. If it's too high, if we go into an excursion where it's a high level limit, maybe it'll colorize it in a certain way. And I can see here that we have one turbine is currently not performing correctly. It doesn't have a a true value. We can go in, navigate to that turbine. It gives me a zoomed in display that's contextualized. You can see here that I have navigational links for every other turbine at this site. But I can see here that right now we're at Black Mesa turbine number GE7. And I can see the active power, which is the wind speed over the last few days, hasn't been keeping up with the actual, expected power curve. Is the piece of equipment working as expected? It looks to be, fairly consistent with what I would expect my equipment to be rated at. I can have this XY plot and these trends and the images to show me sort of data that I need to know to really assess the problem. And maybe if I want kind of a more anatomic view, I could go to the schematic view that we have here for this piece of equipment. Again, staying with GO7, and I could see the positions of the motor and the the actual turbine itself, the gearbox temperature, the bearing temperatures, the calculated efficiency, the operating state. And I again could, I'm in GE07 right now, I could navigate to GE02 or GE10, and I can see the different manufacturers, serial numbers, and all the different data associated with those pieces of equipment. So for any industry, for any sort of operational intelligence that we're trying to perform, there's always going to be an infinity of ways of getting that data out, trending that data up, displaying that data. So OSIsoft just seeks to really provide you guys the tools, the training, the assistance to capture that data and successfully transform that data into information that's going to be reliable and powerful for making decisions. So with that, I think I'll probably just hand it back over to Tom and just come back to the slides and say thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. If there's any questions, I think Tom can check in.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. We really appreciate the demonstration. So folks, at this time, we'll be taking questions from the audience. Once again, please use the Q&A option to the right of your WebEx interface, and we will answer your questions as they arrive. If you happen to change your view to full screen, the Q&A option may be located at the bottom now. And so we'll take a couple questions here. Okay, Dan, our first question, can you talk a little bit more in detail about how data is imported into PiVision? Also, how do you make dashboards? Is there a dashboard builder?
Yes. So I can let me just jump back a few slides here. So I'll answer your second question first. So in PiVision, it's the same website to displays as it is to view them. So I didn't show you guys, but there is a, let me just navigate back to it real quick. There is a new display button right here. And so I wanted to build a new display. It's really as simple as clicking new display here. It's not going to look as busy as all of this, but basically you can go in here, navigate down to whatever piece of a database or server you're working with, navigate in there. So again, here's our Petrolux. There was this, this generational sort of equipment. And I can navigate in and say, hey, here's the Petrolux Corporation. Here's the asset list. I got my fans, my heat exchangers. I can go in here and say heat exchanger 13. Here's all the data associated with it. Maybe you want to know what is the let me see here. If there's like the temperature here, I'll build a trend, and it's really as simple as this: just clicking and dragging and dropping. There's symbols we can bring onto here. We throw on throw on a boiler here, this piece of equipment. So it's very simple. So it's very straightforward to go in here. You can search. You can type into search. You can navigate. That's the kind of the part of the beauty of the asset framework is. With a data archive, we had to go in and really know the names of our tags, kind of have that innate knowledge of how our tags are named, and kind of search for them one by one. But in the AF framework, asset framework, we have really this hierarchical list that helps us browse through. As far as how the data is collected, so again, we have the interfaces, which are going to connect to our, usually we have, kind of an information layer in terms of, there's a SQL database, or there's an OPC server, there's going to be pieces of equipment that we're going to talk to, and we're going to, be able to key into those sensors, extract those data and timestamps and put them into tags. So if you want more information on that, we can definitely, I know we probably would talk about sort of, sensors and information layers that we can do in your context. So as a general, I think that's kind of a good covering for that, but there's obviously specifics for all the different pieces of equipment, all the different sort of data sources we're connecting to.
Dan, how does OPC play with either the Pi interface or the Pi connector?
So we do have a new connector for the new Pi OPC UA protocol, but typically in life, OPC DA is far and away probably the most common data source that we have, and the OPC DA interface is a very, very common install that we have, where we just talk to the OPC server, we talk to the data topics that it has, we extract that data, we use what's called the OPC item ID, and we just codify each corresponding Pi tag. That's the system of measurement for every sensor out in the field. And we basically just have corresponding tags in the PyData archive. They're going to capture every every data stream that we want to relay through the OPC server into the OPC interface into Pi. So again, there's good YouTube videos on our channel for how to configure that and set that up. Our documentation on the OPC user interfaces and every other user interface is very good. So it's a pretty straightforward configuration, but if you have more questions on that, I would definitely to point you to the documentation and the learning for kind of more clarity on that.
Thank you, Dan. Our next question, are there templates available for renewable facilities so that it's easy to upload wind turbine points or inverter points easily into a common format? We deal with most vendors and that have various forms of points that aren't listed in a standard format.
So we do have some example kits. We call them AF example kits. They're on our Pi Square user forums, which just as a side kind of shout out are a very good place to go and talk with other Pi users about projects and implementations and questions that you might have. So we do have some example kits over there, but in general, they're kind of they're not really meant to be kind of rollout shop for building your actual production databases. They're kind of a sense of, here's what you could do for this sort of industry. So we don't really have production grade templates that are meant to be used as a starting point to your servers to be used kind of plug and play, but we can definitely help you out with that. If you are running into trouble building that stuff out, you can contact tech support. But yeah, generally the idea would be to templatize your elements, build out what we call an AF template for the piece of equipment, and then normalize them in that template. Regardless of the manufacturer, of the style, kind of find the commonalities and start to build a unified template that normalizes your data for each piece of equipment that's similar.
Thanks, Dan.
Sure.
Our next question. For a consulting firm, what is the availability of Pi Vision used for different clients? Does it need to be installed at the client premises, or can it be siloed by client using Pi Vision?
Yes, so that's one of the things that we can do. Pi Vision, I can't really show you on this install, but as everything in everything in Asset Framework and Pi Vision is all Active Directory security based, Windows integrated security based. So what you could do is you could either set up claims-based authentication for your users, or maybe some sort of like VPN or external Pi Vision where they can log in with a Windows Active Directory user specific to their company, specific to their site, and you can have either separate databases in the Asset Framework, or you can have actually different parts of the same database secured and only visible to the members of the appropriate customer base for each sort of section of your database. So you can certainly do that where as a consultant, for however many customers you may have a login for each, or a login for each user from those locations, and you can have that segregated so that only the components that you would wish to be visible to each customer is visible to those customers and hidden from everyone else. So definitely, I would urge you to look into the AF security model. We have a good KB articles on that, and same thing for Pi Vision. We can have separate vision displays shared only with certain people, certain groups.
Thank you, Dan. Our next question. Is there a way to have multiple bars on a trend, like snapshot bars to view data value at a given time?
So I think as of the last couple of releases, I believe it is possible. Hold on, let me just see if it's. Okay, no, so it's not visible it's not possible in the current release, but in the next release, I was just actually playing around with the beta a couple days ago. That does exist. So currently we only have one trend trace option that'll drop on. Let me just move this guy out of the way. Drop on a trend trace cursor that tells you the time and the value here. So the value on the far side is the current value. So whenever you're looking at a trend, You can click and drag to zoom in. You can click once on the display. I know this is very high density. You can click once on the display to drop in a trend cursor. You can click and drag it around to look at a certain time at a certain value. As of the latest release, you can only have one at a time. But in the upcoming release, if you click on the trend like this multiple times, it'll drop in multiple cursors, and you can just drag them off like that to get rid of them. So as of right now, no, it is not possible, but very soon it will be. If you wanted more information on that, you can definitely. I think there's a good place to go and check out the kind of the upcoming plans for vision. I have to just check with support on that.
All right, thank you. Our next question. I'm interested to know if PiVision has predictive maintenance capability organically using machine learning algorithms. If yes, how does that work?
So right now, I say right now, but out of the box, there's not going to be any sort of magical, button you can press to say, hey, take this sensor and tell me what's going to happen in a day. If that existed in out of the box kind of asset framework, it would we'd be a much larger and much richer company, I imagine. But what we do is we provide you the tools for integrating with the systems that would provide you the business intelligence, the data analytics that would help you build out a statistical model that you could then feed inputs to, run a custom code. If we have the advanced calculation engine, it as a custom code that generates data that you collect data with the custom OSIsoft message format with. However you want to generate that data, we're going to be able to help you collect it. But that's the thing. So the Pi system is more of a toolbox than it is a complete pre-built, right? It's not, nothing's really prefabricated. So it's very powerful, but it definitely requires some user input, some design time to get things into a shape that's going to be valuable for you. But again, the kind of the options are limitless there, and it's infinitely scalable to go in and predict new things, refine analyses, capture events and information in different ways. So yes, you absolutely can have predictive maintenance. We have future tags that you can the same way you'd use regular tags. They're stored differently. There's no collisions. So we can have predictive data, but it's going to require some modeling and some calculations outside of just base out of the box operations.
Thanks, Dan. Our next question: do the Pi connectors auto discover?
Yes, for the most part. You'd have to look from connector to connector, but that's sort of the design. It's the kind of future approach to data collection. For interfaces, you have to go in and usually in Excel we lay out all the tag definitions for here's every sensor that we know is in this data source. Here's all the the configuration information you would need to know to go and discover that sensor data source, link it to each tag, and we push those out into the data archive. The interface picks them up and starts writing to those tags. Right. The connector seeks to kind of cut out that manual design process by exposing, kind of crawling recursively through the data source and saying like, hey, here are the assets, here are the pieces of equipment, here are the potential events that I found. Which of these do you want to build? Where do you want to store them? And it sets up the data collection sensors into tags, but it'll also help you build out the asset framework database to capture and represent the pieces of equipment that those sensors are coming from. So again, it's different from sensor to sensor in the exact sort of methodology and hierarchical design of those data sources, but that's part of it. Yes, it's not just data collection. It is also asset management and initial design.
Thanks, Dan. Our next question: can we use Pi points and Pi asset framework both simultaneously in a Pi vision graphic?
Yes, I could show you that. So right now, see, I'm drilled in. I'm using this, the AF attributes from my AF server. And I would recommend sticking with AF attributes. It's really going to be that kind of simple, latest, the most modern way of working with your data. But if I did want to go in, you can see here in the home area, all of these little kind of like stacks of like hockey pucks looking things are the AF databases, but the little pie cylinders here are actually data archives. So these are actually where our tags live. You can see that there's no structure here. There's nothing. It appears to be empty. If I go in and do a search for like sinusoid, it pops up, and here are all the tags in that server. So there's not going to be any structure exposed there because there is no structure to expose. So you could build out and throw on sort of data here as needed to have my sinusoid is not the most interesting tag in the world, but I would recommend against it. It is certainly possible to use tags in Vision, but Vision is built with Asset Framework in mind, so we can go in and do things like like this, where we go over and we hop into a floor and we have all the event frames built out from AF for all the pieces of equipment in this display, and we have the ability to switch between pieces of equipment up here from asset to asset. So all of these, there's a ton of features that AF is very richly built upon, leveraging the template structure, the hierarchical structure of AF. That using tags, you're really kind of regressing into that world of just looking sensor to sensor and not really focusing on the big picture, the equipment, the contextual information. So yes, it is possible, but I know I've been kind of belaboring this point as well, but I would strongly urge against it. So AF is really going to be the technology that's really, like I said, really going to unlock the your data.
We have one more question. This gentleman wants to know, can you go over how you do the bar graph again in PyVision?
The bar, oh, so the bar, oh, okay, the bar graph. So I think that this bar graph, I can show you guys a little bit of the insider information real quick. That was on the energy use intensity, I think. So I think these are actually, so there is no bar graph out of the box in PyVision. If I had to guess, yeah, I think these are all individual gauges. So if I check here and format gauge, you can see that these are all actually, one of the symbols is a vertical gauge. So this is just one of the kind of the clever ways that you could just organize your data. So so this is actually grabbing from the server, from the AF server. We have individual attributes for last month's total, 2 months ago's total, the month before's total, and we're trending all of those on a common scale with a pre-built trend, kind of scaling them up this way. So out of the box, there is no bar gauge in, there's no bar graph type display, but we've obviously kind of built it out in a format that is useful and usable for us.
Thank you, Dan.
Absolutely.
Let's just see if there's any other questions here. All right. Well, if there are no further questions, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's demonstration. If you do happen to have any following questions or comments after today, please feel free to reach out to us from one of our follow-up emails sent out after the demo. Once again, thank you for attending our live demonstration of OSIsoft's Pi system, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And Dan, thanks again for going through this with us.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Take care.
All right, see ya.